That's up and running now.
I just was looking, so I'm going to quickly talk high-level TEC for a second, and then we'll kick it over to Matt, who's going to introduce our awesome speaker tonight. Looking through the folks that are on the call tonight, we've got some people who have been on a lot of calls, so I don't think I need to introduce what the TEC is, but we can get into it pretty quickly. But just for anyone watching the video content we're going to produce later, the TEC is a group of like-minded business leaders. A lot of us came out of retail, but we've got other industries. We've got different parts of the world often represented. And we find that, I think Brad, one of the first calls we ever had, talked about the authentic sharing and learning from each other is what's so needed today. So there's no script, there's no question that's wrong. We've had a lot of amazing conversations here where the dialogue went all over the place, and we really got to chase down some new ideas that I think all of us have left inspired. So it's always free. It's always available to anyone who wants to pop on and learn and ask questions. And tonight we've got an awesome speaker, and I want to personally thank Lance. And I'll now kick it over to Matt, who can give Lance a proper introduction. And as always, Tim is going to be later on our moderator. Awesomeness, and he will control, so we can use the raised hand function when we get there. But you don't need to wait. You can ask a question at any time. So Matt, if you want to introduce our speaker, really appreciate you guys being here.
Sure thing. All right, thanks, Rod. All right, we got a few more people just popping into the waiting room here, so I just let them in. All right, so we're getting started here. So our guest speaker tonight is Lance Twitty. Lance is currently the Chief Merchandising Officer and has supply chain as well for a Japanese retailer called how do you say it, Lance? I can't even say it.
Daiso.
People want to say Daiso, but Daiso.
Yeah, we hear quite a few pronunciations. So from a brand awareness, it's Daiso.
Daiso. Well, so Daiso is a really unique company based out of Japan. Lance is helping lead the U.S. effort, which he's going to talk a little bit about tonight. But Lance, you've got a full career in retail. When I met Lance, he was at Walmart in the international division. And before that, he had spent many years in the Walmart US business, helping lead different areas of merchandising. And then when he and I met each other in international, he was leading a lot of our international efforts across really many of the countries that Walmart had a presence in. And we got to work together there at Walmart International. In fact, I want to show just really quickly here we go. Look at these handsome guys right here. We decided to grow our beards out. This was back in like 2016.
Wow.
And so and VP Ashley Taylor agreed to pay, I think it was like $1,000 a person towards a charity, a charity for men's health, basically. And so we all grew our beards out for that. But I found that online. I thought I'd share that funny looking picture of us.
Good times.
Yeah, those were definitely good times for sure. But when Lance and I kind of left Walmart about the same time frame. Lance left a little bit after me. And Lance, when you left Walmart, you got a really cool opportunity to join the Fresh Market, which is a really cool specialty grocer retailer here in the U.S. Think kind of like Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, but even better, and just smaller footprint, smaller size business. That Lance got to lead a lot of the merchandising components of that business. I know you got into supply chain, merch ops, spent many years there as an executive for the Fresh Market, and then now in the new role you're in now. So Lance, without further ado, man, I just want to turn it over to you. I'll let you kind of say a few things, and then we'll just jump right into the conversation.
Yeah, no, thanks, Matt. And appreciate the opportunity to talk with this group. This would actually be the first time I even joined the group. So depending upon how I do tonight for you guys, hopefully maybe you'll invite me back to a few conversations and be on the opposite side of the table asking some questions. But no, I do appreciate it. And, for me, I've been in with Daiso now for a little over 6 months. So still fairly new, as the organization is new to the U.S., is definitely not new to the world. So Daiso has over 6,000 stores globally, operating in countries, obviously in Asia, but then Australia and Brazil. And we've been here in the U.S. for a little over 15 years. But we've been small. We've been concentrated. We've been trying to build the brand, and so we're ready for Daiso 2.0, where we're going to have the opportunity to take us from 92 stores today upwards over to 1,000 in the next 7 years. And I dare anybody to show me another retail organization with general merchandise and food that's going to grow at that pace. And because when we saw the opportunity, many of us we've built a pretty incredible team here. The opportunity to just drive a business. I haven't seen that since the 80s and the 90s, when Walmart was really growing to its capacity and getting stores out on the streets. And so we're really excited, Matt. Thank you for that. Yes, I do have opportunity or responsibility for merchandising, supply chain, product compliance, and marketing for DISO. So pretty much half of the retail chains underneath my responsibility, and look forward to the next several years of achieving our goals.
Awesome. I thought too, real quick, there's a couple of, we've got some new faces on this call, and so I thought maybe it'd be cool, Rod, we maybe have Irina just introduce herself as well, because Rod asked Irina and we kind of collaborated. Irina and I got to talking. She's got a really interesting background in merchandising and as well as retail just in general. And so we asked her also to join, just to kind of be another person, another expert in the room to share her perspective. So since she's kind of a new face to a lot of us, Irina, can you take 30 seconds to just quickly introduce yourself, just so everyone knows who you are?
Sure, no worries, Irina Servina. So I say I'm super passionate about retail and merchandising. It's what I love and always have loved doing. But since I graduated, I started at the store level and worked my way up, and I worked for retailers like Sears. So I started my career at Sears. And then from Sears, I was leading team in global sourcing, product development, and private label for Home Depot Canada. And from there, I was at Shoppers Drug Mart doing a lot of product development, and then joined Walmart. Gino from Home Depot called me to come and join Walmart. So I was at Walmart for about three and a half years. And I was doing the same thing, product development, merchandise, sourcing, and worked in Rod's team in retail operations. And I always had this itch for consulting and passion for problem solving. So I joined PwC, and I was there for about 7 years, where I did a lot of CPG and merchandising consulting. And from there, I am now at Deloitte, so enjoying a lot of fun projects. So I'm looking forward. Lance, you have some wonderful experience. So I'm looking forward to hearing a lot from you.
Hopefully I don't let you down, Irene.
No, I'm sure you won't.
Well, Irene, thank you for that, and thanks for jumping in here with us tonight. So for the group here, I'm going to kind of get us kicked off. So this is no slides, there's no presentation. This is a conversation and a discussion. So I'm going to start off by asking Lance a question, just to kind of thought starters to get the conversation going. And I would just ask you all to jump in, share your questions, share an opinion if you have an opinion. Don't be shy. So we have a really unique opportunity with Lance being here. So let's pick his brain. Let's get his thoughts, because we can definitely all learn a lot from him. So Lance, I'll just kind of kick us off. As one of the questions that kind of get us going is just thinking about merchant, a merchant in a retailer. We think about those of us that have been in retail for decades now, how a merchant looked, 10, 20 years ago, and the skill sets that they had, versus what you see now in terms of the next 5, 10 years and the merchants that you have in your organization and the ideal skill set that you're looking for going forward. How has that skill set shifted and changed, and how are you kind of thinking about what a merchant needs to look like going forward?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Great question. Time is probably the most important part of your question, and the time that has changed. Matt, you mentioned 20 years ago, that was a different level of merchandising to what was 5 years ago. And then when I turned my head and looked the other way, just this past year, these past couple of years have even trumped that last 5 years. And now what I anticipate is that every year going forward, the opportunity for a merchant is going to look drastically different. And it's exciting for those that are in merchandising, for those that support merchandising, but at this other time, it's also a little bit scary. And hopefully I can answer the why on both that. I think from an exciting standpoint, you know, the merchant as they continue to evolve, as I continue to evolve, because I do also call myself somewhat of a merchant, because I'm excited about item merchandising. The evolution, it started with really the evolution of the accessibility with the customer or with the consumer. And I think as part of this, the merchant has always had the customer in mind, but unfortunately or fortunately, depending upon which organization you're in and what kind of sector of retail, the evolution of the customer's mindset is also drastically changing. You know, they are looking, or they have the opportunity to be more personalized in their thinking. They have the ability to make a decision at a moment's notice. And that decision could be one way today, but it could be completely different tomorrow, depending upon what's going on in their environment. And what's exciting about that is that they have an absolute, because we're all customers at the same time, right? We all have the ability to press a button, no matter if that's on your phone or if it's on your laptop or if it's voice activated, and you could get literally something now in your possession. We had a kind of a team meeting last week, and we needed some supplies. So what did I do? Unfortunately, our retailer doesn't have the supplies I needed, so we went on Walmart.com, and we had the merchandise in the matter of 20 minutes. It actually beat it before the pizza came, which was even more amazing. And so it's an example of the customer really has that opportunity to need it now. So now put yourself in the merchant's mindset. Okay, if they have that level of accessibility, they have options. You know, the merchant has to now understand how to navigate at that level of speed. Because if you're not there to serve the customer's needs of what they're looking for at the time that they need it, then you may have an opportunity that you're dealing with to retain that customer, you know, overall. And so I think first and foremost, Matt, the most important thing a merchant of the past, the merchant of today, and the merchant of the future will always have to keep in mind is the customer, as well as the consumer, because you're also trying to build the basket. You're trying to drive additional traffic into your stores or online. You're trying to bring, you know, your comp performance up every single year, which is a challenge in itself because you're battling with the external factors of the world, but you're constantly challenged to create new and exciting and differentiation. And so first and foremost, I think you gotta continue with, and you gotta keep the customer first and foremost, but you gotta move at the speed at which they're moving to. Now, in terms of the experience of the merchant, so, you know, for me, I think all the factors that a merchant goes through today and has been, you know, dealing with the P&L, dealing with product development. I already talked about sourcing. You know, are we constantly looking for better product, higher quality product, better cost, and keeping up with the demands of the customer or even the consumers that are out there? The level of experience is still needed from those that are experts, but then also you got to now layer in this ability of technology and how technology is now, or has the ability to foster a decision-making skill set that would have taken some of us older merchants, you know, days, weeks, maybe even months to analyze, develop a strategy and move that forward, you know, to get it executed. Today, with the introduction of AI and this, you know, this instantaneous data computation, it literally is now giving the merchants their story, their need for analysis in seconds versus days, weeks, and months. Now, not every retailer has invested in it, but those that have invested, I think you're starting to see that come to life. And the cool part is now a merchant can react faster to data. They can react faster to customer decisions. They can make decisions on their own about product colors, about product size, shape, cost, price. And they can get a lot of those analytics that are pretty close to what it should be relatively quick. And I think, though, what as the merchant continues to evolve, it's really what's scary to me is the support network around the merchant. So if you think about folks that are in supply chain, if you think about folks that are in marketing, store operations, or any support group that needs to surround themselves to make the merchant successful and to ensure that product meets the needs of the customers. If you have a merchant that has the ability to make a quick decision, you also need a support structure that'll manage with it. And what I'm faced with today, and I have been faced with, and will continue to be faced with, is can you take an entire organization and surround that merchant and surround a way of working to move at that same level of speed? And for me, it's about, not only using that data, having the merchant say, I've got I'm ready to go with it, but it's talking about what to go do about it and how to go get it done and rallying the troops together to move at the same pace. Which means a merchant of today and tomorrow are going to have to be even more collaborative. They're going to have to be even more planful and mindful that whenever a decision's made and a go button is hit, that everybody is falling right next to them. And that they're creating an environment of inclusion. They're creating an environment of moving fast. And it's almost going to establish a new culture and a new way of working. But for me, it's exciting, it's scary. And what we're thinking about here in our current culture is how do we foster those decisions at a faster pace, but then how do I make sure that the foundations are keeping up with it?
Rod, you want to go ahead and jump on in?
Go ahead, Rod. Hey, thanks, guys. Awesome conversation, Lance. We had a chance, a couple of us had talked to Lance a bit in advance of this call, and I think one of the things that was so intriguing about what you just said, and I'm going to ask the question that you got into that last time was, you said you've got that person with experience, and you've got that person that maybe is young and up and coming, and like you said, leveraging all that data. How is that kind of collision happening? Where and I think we were sharing this with before of how do you give that up and comer who's got that data and maybe very crafty with using technology and all the different kinds of information that's available, just like you were saying, and how do you mentor them to kind of start having that experience that comes with the collaborative skills, like you said, with the knowledge of what to do? You were able to share with us some ideas on that kind of growth of talent that I thought was really, really impressive. If you could share that a little bit.
Yeah, and so for the talent side, it's definitely you've got to have, I think, the expertise in terms of this kind of knowledge base, but you've also got to bring in the folks that you're to your exact point have that ability to merge their technology, and then how do you slam those two things together? How do you bring in someone who may not be that knowledgeable? And you do have to force that mentorship. You do have to force the buyer of today, the buyer of the future, and the buyer of the past together in a way that pairs to the goals of your organization. So I think for me and how I think about our organization today, I have a lot of merchants that are fairly new. They came from the store side. They were homegrown into kind of the purchasing and buying decision-making process, and so they have the passion for the product. They have the desire to make something great, but the one thing that they lack is some of the basic category management capabilities. How do we do the analysis? How do we look at the P&L in an analytical way? And so the best way to grow them and to offer them is to pair them with folks that have that older, kind of more established way of thinking. And so for our organization, what I've done is I've hired a couple of individuals who have kind of that more foundational merchandising Catman process mentality. And we've said, okay, I want my new folks, the folks that are on the data, the folks that are using the latest greatest, I want you guys to teach and to help foster a different way of thinking with the folks that I brought in today from an older school way of thinking. But more importantly, I want the older Catman mentality to be merged and developed within the new folks. And so I think by hiring and building out a team that has both of those capabilities or both of those experience levels, and pairing them actually under same category level responsibilities, we are starting to see different decisions being made. We're starting to see that even though the data does tell you one thing, and now we're not exploring AI just yet, but even the simple data and the quickness of some of the data that we're receiving from some of our suppliers, there are quick statements that a merchant of today are wanting to make. They want to go, they want to move fast, but it's listening to, if you make that decision today without looking at all the different areas within the business that decision could impact, and you're not able to move it again with that same level of speed, then you may find yourself not as successful as if you would have thought through, or at least partnered with and collaborated with some different areas of the business to ensure that at the end game your area is successful. And so we're still fairly new here in the U.S. We're still building out those capabilities, but by merging both the Catman kind of way of thinking with the need and the passion for moving fast and being excited, more to tell. But so far what we're starting to see is a balance of thought and a balance of execution, in which we didn't see before I got here.
Rick, go ahead with your question.
Lance, good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you. Yeah.
You're a Walmart guy like I was. We learned through storytelling. I was hoping I could hear from you a specific category, brand, item even. You tell me what you want to focus on that you're excited about that brings together a lot of the different topics you're touching on here, from data to modernizing category management. What's your VPI, or whatever you want to frame it as?
Yeah, chair socks.
Right on. Tell me about the chair socks.
Yeah, chair socks are unique. Chair socks are, let me just describe them to you. They're literally 4 little socks. We have many different characters, many different colors that fit on the bottom of your chair at home or in the office or whichever. They don't fit over rolling wheels or caster wheels by any chance, but they do fit on a typical leg chair. And their whole intent and purpose is to not scuff your floors, but look cool while doing it. And this was probably one of the most exciting items that when I came into Daiso, I was like, first of all, like what the heck's a chair sock? Number one. Second of all, we got a full section of them, so we got plenty of assortment. And then I was like, these can't be a great seller, because I was the guy touring through, looking at the store, looking at the Japanese product. I was like, man, this will be a category that I will most likely look at, just like our fishing lures, just like neckties, and I might do some assortment optimization and figure out what to do. And so coming in, I mentioned this as kind of part of my introduction, and I got this whoa back. You don't touch the chair socks, Lance. You don't touch it. And I started to understand. I was like, why? Like, what is the deal with these chair socks? It's one of our top 5 selling items in non-food. Huge business for us. The merchants brought me some of the data that basically said, not only are they a massive seller for us here in the US, but here's also what they do in Japan. Here's what they do in Australia. Here's what they do in Brazil. People really care about their floors and not scuffing them up with a chair, right? Because it depends on what you have at the bottom. And I said, okay, I'm still amazed, but is this really what the US customer is looking for? I get maybe in Japan, okay, you're selling me on Australia, okay, you're selling me on Brazil, you're showing me some numbers, but what truly makes this a great item? And if Matt comes in off the street into a Daiso store and decides that is he really gonna want some chair socks? Matt, I don't know if you still want them or not. I know you said you wanted them, but at the end,
I went on the website after we talked about chair socks. I ordered some for my daughter, and she thinks they're the coolest thing she's ever seen.
There you go. So the second thing I did was I asked for customer feedback. And I wanted to be proven that just because the data was telling us is this customer, this consumer, right? So Matt was a consumer, and I sold him as now a customer, and hopefully Matt, you'll continue to buy. But we started explaining what the product is. We started going back to this kind of category, old school way of thinking, functionality of the product, cool design, fun for kids. And the more we talked about chair socks, the more people forgot that it was about protecting your scuff floors. It was just about something that was cool, unique, and different. And so, you know, as we listened from our customers, we did a little bit of survey research. So that was a little bit of old school. We had the data. And I told the team, okay, now we've got these sitting on the side counter, or I guess in line. I've heard different terms around different retailers, but basically sitting on the shelf. I said, if these are a big seller for us, you know, how do we go bigger and bolder and better? The whole stack it high and watch it fly mentality. And we did. We just put them on an end cap. We didn't do any more than putting them on social media, on Instagram, put it on an end cap, and we sold 400% the quantity, because it put it out in the face. So even those customers that knew about them were great, but then we introduced it to the customer that was coming in that hadn't made it down that aisle. And what that did was also drove the analytics side to also teach the merchants here that if you put one single item out that's already at a great value, the power of product placement is unfathomable. I mean, it's just amazing what you can do with just item at a price. And so what that has now turned into is every month we have what I call my MAP meeting, which is a merchandise activity planning, very basic 30, 60, 90, 180-day planning on key programs. The merchants are excited about going in, finding some of these cool, unique items. The second one I'll tell you about here in just a second that we're going to trial is the training chopstick. Okay, so any one of us who don't know how to use chopsticks, you can go to our chopstick session. It's a perfect little device that teaches you how to position your fingers on a chopstick in your hand to use those. We're finding all these unique items that we want to bring out in front of the US customers, say, didn't think I needed it, but man, it's such a cool thing. It's such a cool item. Let me give it a try. Matt, you gave it a try. Daughter loved it. Hopefully you're going to be a return customer to find either more chair socks or some other great items that we have. But, you know, Rick, to answer your question, it started with data. It started with listening to the customer. It started with trialing and testing and finding an item that proved me wrong. It became one of my favorite items in the company. And now I'm selling a ton of them because we're doing something different with it. And the even better part is that we've now changed the culture of our planning and our item merchandising thought process to do more of that, but bring some of those hidden gems out to sell more. And the merchant team's pretty excited about it. The operators are even more excited about it because they're getting a lot of good feedback from the customers.
That's awesome. Let's see, we don't have any open hands raised. So Lance, actually, while we're waiting on other hands to raise here, last time we spoke, it was really interesting the way you guys are approaching the stores and how they were originally concepted in Japan, and the importance of kind of bringing that culture to the U.S. market. Talk maybe a little bit about that, because it's a really unique approach, and I love it. It's a really refreshing approach, because you're not trying to be like everyone else. You're not trying to kind of fit into the mold. You're breaking the mold and doing something completely out of the box, which I love.
Yeah, so for us, Matt, it's it's about keeping it simple and keeping it basic. But our first area of opportunity is, you use the example right at the very beginning without knowing. You were trying to pronounce Daiso, and that's because we have a brand awareness opportunity. We have as we're going to grow from 90 plus stores to over 1,000 in the next several years. We're going to be entering into markets where we have never been. And, our first example was Chandler, Arizona. We just opened up probably been about 6 weeks ago. First store in Phoenix, which Chandler is kind of a Phoenix suburb. First store in Arizona. We put the store out there, just did a little bit of marketing, and it was not only the #1 opening store in the U.S. history, but also for Daiso as a globe. And what we realized pretty quick is that we are very unique in that there's not a lot of Japanese value variety stores in the market in the US. And we think there is such a, well, we know there's such a demand for not only introducing unique and fresh, differentiated products at a great value, but we're also starting to see some of this Japanese culture, this kind of pop culture that's starting to enter into the US market. And we know it's due to a couple things. One being transient growth. So as citizens from Japan and or from Asia that are used to the Daiso brand are making their way here, but they're also introducing some of this new pop culture that we're seeing in anime, like comic books. We're seeing it in characters. So Sanrio, we're seeing it in Disney. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with Hello Kitty. It's an example of a character licensed type product. We're seeing this kind of anime come out in gaming, and it's very interesting. I've been talking with actually a couple of gaming companies. They're very just interested in how we can drive kind of the Daiso brand and expand upon this pop culture way of thinking or way of living, and explore this kind of younger generation, this population that is just starting to explode here in the US side. And so, as I mentioned, there's very few retailers. I can probably name them on one hand that do anything close to what we're doing. And you mix a unique, fresh, the chair socks, the banana holder. I'll explain that one later if you guys want me to. The magic eraser that I love. These are just products that you really just can't find in a lot of spots. But the other thing is that we're selling them at such an extraordinary value that we have a full, well-rounded offering that you just can't get. No offense to my Walmart folks, I still own stock, still good to go. I want them to be successful, but the Walmarts, the Targets, the Dollar Generals, the Five Belows, it's just uniquely different. And yes, there are some similar products, but we also sell just things you can't get anywhere else. And by keeping that Daiso brand and that Daiso assortment whole, from if you go to Japan, Australia, Brazil, Singapore, if you go to China, Korea, you walk into a Daiso Japan store there, you'll walk into a Daiso Japan or a Daiso US store here, you're not going to see any different, right? So we're also carrying what we call that secret sauce of Daiso. We're bringing that over, so when you walk in, you do feel like you're in potentially a different country. And Matt, I think for us, that's the uniqueness that we have to deliver. But our ultimate goal is, and our focus right now, is how we bring that brand awareness. So as we enter into new markets, we're going to be doing some kind of unique, cool, fresh, fun ways of introducing Daiso. So definitely look out as we expand more east. But that's probably going to be one of our biggest areas of opportunity, just to make sure that we can keep up with the store space, or store pace, excuse me.
Awesome. Richard, please go ahead with your question.
Hi, Lance. Yeah, I was interested in what you're saying about the kids. They're doing a lot of this anime stuff and all that. So there's going to be a growing market probably for this. So it's exciting. I had two kind of questions. One, with respect to diversity and inclusion, have you got a store in Honolulu?
We do have stores in Hawaii. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I was just looking at the top U.S. cities, population Japanese, and on your store locator, I can see there's a lot in California, and coincidentally, that's where all these top Japanese. So, are you actually targeting stores on the basis of Japanese population?
That was the existing strategy. Actually, what we're working towards now is we want to serve the entire U.S. community. And so we're not focused on just Japanese or holistic Asian population. What we're finding, especially in several of our pockets where stores exist, we have a high following of the Hispanic community. We have all different types of level of incomes that are coming into our stores. We have a very diverse age group. So even though I mentioned the younger generation, We are a big shop for teachers. We are a big shop for retirees. We are, because we do a lot of gifting. We're kind of serving the masses. And as we think about our real estate strategy, we know that if we just think, what I would call just kind of myopic or kind of tunnel to one type of population or one type of demographic, we're not going to achieve our mission that we want to accomplish. So no, the answer is to continue to serve the general population.
Yeah, so your comment about Phoenix is a good proof of concept, where there's very few Japanese at that. Okay, and the second thing, maybe you could talk about it later, but your pricing strategy, the $1.75 seems to mean something to you guys, whether it's automotive or chair socks or whatever, everything's $1.75. So is that like a dollar store kind of concept, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the foundation of Daiso, which if you guys Google Daiso in Japan, the whole basis was 100 yen shop. That was the basis of Daiso, which is closer to kind of that that true $1, that true 100 yen store. And back in the day when the company was started, everything in the store, no matter what it was always 100 yen. Now, as obviously as inflation, as the environments have grown, they have ventured off that just slightly. I'll tell you, 85% of our items are $1.75. So when you're looking at 13 to 17,000 SKUs at any given point in time, that's pretty cool that we're able to keep a low price to that value. Unfortunately, there are some items that we have domestic, because there are times where we have to make some substitutions. There are times where we have identified something that would be better fit for the U.S. consumer or U.S. customer that we're exploring, that we may have to go a little bit higher on price. So the other 15% can range anywhere from $2 to I think we have one item that's over $12, and that's about as high as we'll ever go. But yeah, the goal, it's a great question. The goal is to try to remain a value-oriented company, just like what our founders established in Japan, and keep the cost low for the customer as we move forward. But also not be too ashamed if we have to go based upon the item, based upon where we're getting it from, based upon costs, like we're all trying to manage margins, and not be too ashamed if we have to go a little higher than $1.75. But we also have to make sure that the quality is there. I want to make sure that this isn't cheap merchandise, which I am proud to say every item that I've touched is I'm really excited about the quality that we're producing. But yeah, so no, it's we're definitely in the value chain, but I wouldn't necessarily call us a dollar chain, if that makes any sense.
Thanks for the question, Irina. Go ahead.
Awesome. So this is great, Lance, and I've been enjoying hearing a lot about it, especially at the beginning, how the merchant roles are going to evolve. And I kind of envision category managers, obviously, of the future. They need to be, it's almost like a spider in a web, and they're orchestrating all of the functions.
Great analogy.
That's how I kind of see it, because before I find a bunch of retailers worked in the silos. You had supply chain, you had merchandising, etc. But now I feel like merchants are going to be so important in that collaborating, like you said. But I feel like they're going to be ultimately chief, maybe you can call them strategy officers, etc. So my question to you, as the role of merchandising is evolving, we all know sales margin, even like turns have always been very important from a KPI perspective. How do you think like KPIs or incentives are going to evolve as well? Because part of my thinking is, would you look at kind of product reviews now? Would you look at the amount of complaints? Like, does that all of a sudden also become important? So I would love your thought on that.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Irene. Something we're talking about here as part of just sheer evaluation is customer feedback. It's customer orientation to an item. It's the traffic that actually some of the operational KPIs are being brought into the merchandising area and we're actually talking about potentially, do we just make that the KPIs for the entire company. Because if we're not surrounding ourselves with the customer first and all the associated factors that go with the customer, share results, that kind of share of wallet or any customer response via social media or any satisfaction surveys, etc., then I think we may have lost our true focus. And so, yes, I definitely agree. You can no longer just use the basic KPIs and evaluate. I think your analogy around the spider and the web and orchestrating, since they are touching every one of those levers and they have the ability to direct and conduct each lever to move, the merchant of today and tomorrow has got to be evaluated on successfully collaborating and managing those factors. And I do like what you said about the chief strategy officer. Or for the chief strategy for their category, or ever how you want to call it, it's going to be absolutely important because they are going to have to lead our ability. And here's the one thing I'm struggling with today is not only do you want someone that's analytical and that has the ability to pull levers, but do they as an individual have the ability to lead those levers through? And I think maybe we sometimes forget about the people component of our jobs, especially when you're driving so hard to make the P&L, is that we forget to focus on their development and are they in a position to rally the troops around them to move that forward. And one thing we're working on here is what should be, how do we have those really, really polishing but tough conversations to make sure that they are ready to do that orchestration. And so, yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, because as you're speaking, like one of the things that come up to me, the reason why I say like, maybe chief like category, let's say officer, etc. But I think automation is going to help a lot, like with all the inundated administrative tasks that merchants are doing today. Like they might have computers, let's say, could determine the buying quantities, pricing they should be doing, etc. So I think a lot of that alleviate merchants to become more of a allowing them now to develop more personalized assortments, etc. So I think, this is great.
Yeah,
I'm really impressed like with what Daiso is doing, to be honest, as a consultant now in retail industry and telling a lot of retailers where they need to go. I'm really impressed that you guys are doing, having that customer-centric focus, because the future merchant needs to be, it's all now around the customer, and merchandising is no longer merchant, but they're merchant and the marketer. Like they need to be able to market to customers. So
that's right. That's right. That's a great point. And maybe Irene, you and I can touch base and get some additional thoughts that you may have on where we do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Thanks, Irene. Lance, I'm going to jump in with a quick question. So you talked about the changing landscapes for merchandising. You've talked about kind of the consistency and the look and feel of your store, regardless of its geographic location. Can you speak a little bit to how you're pivoting or thinking about the changing nature of the consumer and how people are shopping today, where they're shopping today, and when, as a merchandiser, and even in terms of your supply chain strategy, how does the changing nature of the consumer, the desire of the consumer to have something immediately, how is that affecting sort of everything from where you're opening stores to how you contemplate online?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. One that we are developing the answer to right now. If you go on our online, to be honest with you, it's basic at all of its core. It's part of our strategy for growth. E-commerce, I think, in general, has to play an important role, not only in accessibility but brand awareness. I want to be able to, when I go to Florida, right? Florida it's going to look good to us, not just because of the weather, but we think that's going to be just an awesome state to operate in, as well as the others. But Florida is very exciting to me. One, I need to focus with e-com to start getting people used to our brand. And if you don't have a physical location there for X amount of time, you've got to use this kind of e-com strategy to be your marketing voice for you. But then behind that, I've got to be able to support and bring some level of efficiency, because I'm sitting in one distribution center today on the West Coast. I'm about to deploy my central distribution center here in the next, I call it 6 weeks. That'll take care of our central and our southeast. So as I'm thinking about that strategy and the timing, as well as timing with how we communicate to the future consumer in Florida, I've got to time those out relatively well, because if I get somebody, our network that's at current state, or even if it's the best thing since sliced bread, but I can't ship it to them at a great cost because I may not have the ability to subsidize that, then I've left a bad experience in their mouth that it's too costly to want to shop and want to buy. So what I need to do is, as I work on my e-com, I need to figure out how do I be more efficient in my supply chain. And so that when they do decide they want to make a purchase, such as those chair socks that Matt bought that came out of a local store here that got shipped across, and I'm sure, Matt, that bill was a little bit higher than the actual product itself. I want to make sure that we give a balanced experience as we enter into the market. And so that's going to be our challenge. Our challenge is to use the e-com platform. Our challenge is to mesh the supply chain strategy together. So as we go into any new market, that those are cohesive. And so if you want to give us a try before you walk into a physical environment, I want to make sure that we start you off on the right foot.
Thank you. It's a great answer. A lot to think about there. Amy, go ahead.
Just curious. I love the idea that you should learn from each other. So I'm a big advocate of that. And so just bringing in more experienced category managers, working with less experienced category managers. Are you finding you're having any ageism issues or technology issues? Or I know better because I'm like 12. So.
No, nothing on ageism. It's a great question, but I think because we have such a unique offering with our assortment, everybody's focused on the item, right? Like, and so I think everybody and we're still small. So I mean, I don't have 30 people, right? I don't have 30 merchants. I've got a team of 6 or 7 that are able to. They all sit right next to each other, and they just sponge off each other. Because again, talking about the merchants that are younger that were kind of homegrown into Daiso, they have just as much to teach about the culture of Daiso and the eagerness to learn, because they're like, wait a minute, I mean, in order to help kind of balance this out, I got to know about who is Daiso, what is Daiso, what's it all about. And so no matter, I got actually several different age groups, to be honest with you. I've got some good experience on any different level, but they're all clicking because they're all excited about the merchandise side. So definitely no ageism. But the systems, to answer the rest of your question, is probably where a little bit of our Achilles heel. And so we're currently working on how do we adapt our technology to help answer some of these discussion topics that we're talking about here. How do we get data faster? How do we make sure that the technology that we do decide on is also enabling us to not only speak to a merchant, but able to speak cross-functionally to the rest of the organization as any basic ERP solution would. And so the Achilles heel for us, and it's not stopping us, it just can be a lot better. That to us is where our focus is, because the merchants are going to move as fast as the technology which can support them. And we know that we've got to catch up with them. And so there is just an overall strategy for us and for our global business to figure out how to get that done sooner rather than later.
And I'm hearing you say common vision and common direction and common growth. So, because not every ERP actually does have, like if you've modified your ERP enough, you could actually have divisions thinking different things.
Yes, you can.
So, but you're right, a small group that's together. And I also love that you just said together. Yeah. Because I think some of the teams these days are not understanding how valuable time together And just listening to somebody on a phone call and just you start to absorb some of their methods and such that you don't get if you're all individual.
No, I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine, and we got on the conversation of COVID impacts and how we've almost lost the ability to speak with each other. And maybe it's a question from me to the group, but the one thing that we're talking about here, and maybe in other retailers as well or other businesses, is how do you what are ways to foster that level of communication to where people actually know, especially the younger crowd that's already texting, WeChatting, all these other different great tools that are out there and available. And it's like, guys, just talk, and let's find a way to talk to each other. And we can do that virtually, or we can do that in the office, but let's pick up the phone and just have a conversation, or let's walk to the desk. And and that's something that, when you talk about not necessarily the ageism, but you talk about the difference between kind of the maturity level of people that have been in this business for such a long time versus where they're at today, this whole relationship retail is a relationship business. And what we're trying to do is teach how do we do that. And you start by talking. You start by communicating, walking around, going to stores together, touring the DC, checking trailer chalks together, just to have a frank conversation. And it seems like today, some folks are just afraid to. And I'm wondering, did kind of COVID, help with that in a bad way? So that to me is, I think, one of the challenges that we're trying to figure out how to overcome, is just how do we get people to talk.
I'll finish by saying I had today to tell somebody who was in the first 3 years of career.
Yeah. So
I had asked them to follow up on a fact, and they're like, well, the person didn't answer my email. The person sitting like 20 feet that way.
Yes.
Stand up, walk over. Well, I didn't want to bother them. Okay, so I brought them both to the cafeteria area. Like, we have a small little dining area. Like, we're going to sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
I was just like, I can't believe I'm teaching this, but then you realize both of the people had only worked professionally as COVID.
Yeah.
And so it was a skill that you just assume people have. You're like, didn't you learn this in kindergarten? But okie dokie. So let's have this conversation and we'll talk. And it was just, it's such a simple thing, but it's not a simple thing.
Yeah, and don't take it for granted, because it's and so we're investing quite a bit of time each day. When someone wants to send an email to me, I literally get up from my desk,
So
I go talk to them. I'm like, hey, let's have a chat. Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Sorry. You're there. Yes, I was.
I telephoned someone last week and they're like, why did you phone? Like, and I'm just like, because I needed to ask you something and I'm not in the same city as you. And they're like, but nobody calls me. They just chat. Okay. Would you like me to hang up and chat?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I guess since you already called, but I'm just like, have you not had a phone call in the last year? Like, it was very, Richard's like, yep, nope, they have not. But I'm just like, I can't type out my nuance of my question that well.
Amy, you can call me if you'd like.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
Before we
talk to you this week.
There was a radio show.
Before we jump to Irina for her second question, Brad, you'd raised your hand. I don't know if you lowered it purposely or not. I didn't want to lose sight of that.
Lance touched on it earlier when I was kind of looking at some of the pictures. First off, we have a store out in Vancouver. You guys have a store, it looks like, Lance. So next time I'm out next month, I'm going to make a point, and maybe Axel, we can ask Sam to go check it out for us. So it looks cool. And you kind of answered this earlier, Lance. One of the questions I had is I was looking at the merchandising and kind of what was happening there. I was wondering where you fit in, because it gave me, like you said, Five Below vibes a little bit, but with a more of a fresh, young energy to it. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that. You kind of touched on it a little bit in terms of placing yourself amongst, say, mass discounters versus Five Below, but it just looks like a cool product mix. It's in this really sweet spot of innovation and cool, but still value.
Yeah, no, it's that's a great question, and thank you for actually going on pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. I told Matt I was not going to do a presentation, but since I'm also here to drive brand awareness, it might have been great if I'd have put maybe a picture of our store up there so you guys know what I'm talking about. But go online, Daiso, and just take a look at some of the pictures. And you're absolutely right. It's very hard to describe. I mean, I'm struggling with this on a daily basis to describe, and the only way I can do that is through actually item discussions, right? So I mentioned earlier the banana holder. How many people know what a banana holder is? Okay, intuitively, what do you think it does? Hold your banana. Literally, we have a yellow banana holder for a single banana, $1.75. And the whole purpose of the banana holder is to protect your banana when you pack it in your lunch.
Yep.
Right? It protects it from bruising because people don't like soft spots on the bananas, etc. And the one thing I have found is that the product that we're bringing over and that we're transitioning from Japan is a lot of our product is use-based product. Is that if you have a need, like you don't want to scuff your floors, if you want to protect your banana, or your fruit, if you want to pack your lunch in 6 quadrants, kind of that bento box mentality, if you want to learn how to do chopsticks, if you want to, which is another favorite item of mine, it's a little blue eraser that some folks are like used to the magic eraser. Yeah, this is a little blue one. You just put a little bit of water on it. It doesn't leave a white residue. But if for any of those folks who have a electric stovetop, and when you make mashed potatoes or boiling water and it gets on, it leaves all those spots everywhere. Like literally, my wife, her and I could not find anything really well to clean that up. Even soap and water, you always get something. But this little blue eraser, just wet it, dab it, cleans it right up. And it's all. It's so this use-based kind of thought process. Almost across every item, we solve a lot of problems that a customer or consumer has, but we interject that also with some cool stuff that you might see, like product in other stores. And I think that's really kind of how we're finding our uniqueness. We're finding our niche is that you can discover. You just walk in and just navigate through and just wander. But if you have this kind of problem in your mind of what you're trying to solve, chances are maybe 80% of the time I might have something for you, if it has to do with your household or eating or whatever it may be. And I think that's what really helps us kind of drive this uniqueness and shows in the pictures that you're looking at, right? We don't have planograms. We don't have item level pricing, which could be another question for one of you. Meaning we don't have it right at the shelf. And so our whole goal is to drive a customer in and then let them explore. We have this kind of phrase called Discover Daiso, and we're figuring out how to use that, but it's exactly what our stores feel like, is that I'm not positioning milk to the back to get you in to the store and then only to force you to have to go through all the aisles to hope that you'll build your basket. We're not an in and out, right? We're not a convenient store model. We want you to come in and we want you to shop. And I think a lot of our assortment does that for us.
Axel, go ahead with your question.
Thank you.
You
spoke about culture, and I'm quite fascinated about the culture side. And I used to work in Switzerland, Canada, Quebec. It's another culture for American companies, Six Flags, and Swedish companies, IKEA. And I really want to. Did you notice something in terms of management, cultural management, working with Daiso? I guess there are, but what's the biggest difference? And also in terms of all the end-all sales, because I guess that's a guess. You're not selling the same way in Japan than in the US. I can tell that you don't sell the same way in Europe than here. So what's the cultural difference? So in terms of management, and after more in terms of how to sell, how to merchandise, and those kind of things.
Yeah, two great questions. So from a management perspective, that's something we are. There's two potential responses to your question. One is the U.S. management culture. So as Daiso has been here for 15 or so years, it's been managed by a lot of our Japanese partners who came over to start this brand and get it going, and have got it to where it's at today. And so in order to expedite that growth model, Japan has found it very necessary to keep a lot of that because we still need the connectivity. We need the culture of what the Daiso brand truly means, and we need to continue to remind ourselves as a U.S. management team that there's a secret sauce. There's a secret sauce to what Daiso is about. And the last thing that any one of us can do, coming from U.S. retail, European retail, is come in and mess with that secret sauce too much. All right, it's Kentucky Fried Chicken. You don't mess with the secret sauce of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And so we're kind of the Kentucky Fried Chicken of Japan. That's a weird analogy. I'm sorry, but I mean that's just you don't mess with the secret recipe. And so with that, we're finding ourselves now is figuring out, okay, how do we launch with accelerated speed of retail, because all of the executive team now is either from Walmart or from other industries with over 30 years, 20 to 30 years experience from each of us. We know how to do retail. Like we know how to move it fast and move it forward. But what we need is the balance of our Japanese counterparts and our Japanese associates here to ensure that while we move fast, we never disrupt the secret sauce of what Daiso means. And you made a comment about Daiso stores being a little bit differentiated across different countries. And I would challenge that. When I look in general, yes, a Daiso store in Japan has upwards of 40,000 SKUs. We have half of that. So there are going to be SKUs that they have that we don't. But I hope that anybody that goes to Japan or goes to Brazil or Australia or Singapore, Korea, all the countries I mentioned earlier, when you walk into our stores, you're like, I've been around the world and I see very little difference, very little change. And again, as long as we can keep that kind of secret sauce, then people will know we're different and unique. If I try to conventionalize it, if I try to bring in stuff that just looks like a Walmart or a Dollar General or any Five Belows, we've lost it. We've lost it. And so that U.S. management team for us is so critical that we keep that blend of thought. And that then bleeds over to our Japan partners. And when we think about the global corporate office and what they're trying to do, they too are also trying to learn how to grow in a U.S. environment. So while we're continuing the secret sauce and the acceleration of execution, we also, as the leaders of the company and the managers of the company, have to educate them on what it means to operate in a U.S. way of working, which is, for those that have been in Japan and worked in Japan, I know a few of you have, is different. In terms of not only way of working internal in a corporate office environment, but all the way down to the store side as well. And so what we've got to do is also be able to explain and educate, but then at the same time, we got to continue to be taught and keep that fine balance between the organization. So that's kind of my answer to the management side. I'm not sure if that clarified it for you. It is a tricky balance, but it's also exciting at the same time because we're all trying to learn from each other.
Go ahead, Irina.
Another question was, obviously with any retailer that's entering the new market, there are always some maybe unexpected challenges, hurdles. And I wanted to ask you, with Daiso, what were some of the challenges that maybe you have faced, and maybe how you overcame them, or you're still trying to figure out how to overcome them?
Yeah, Irene, I think we're still trying to figure out how to overcome a lot of them. So I think, as I mentioned just a minute ago, with us, expanding into more of a global environment, we're teaching and training and learning on how to improve supply chain efficiencies. It's if COVID wasn't enough for the entire world in terms of inventory and port blocks and all that, if it didn't add a wedge into normal operations, we're also trying to figure out, how do we establish a good balance of inventory across the world and make sure that all the appropriate countries and forecasts are all allocated appropriately. So even though I'm here to help support the U.S. business, I would be doing myself a disservice if I wasn't partnering with our global team to help educate and help drive solutions around how do we improve flow from a supply chain capacity standpoint. So that's one. We kind of touched on a little bit earlier. Technology is two. Just making sure that we are the technology we do have today can be improved, can be expanded upon. So I think we've got to continue to march there. And then I would say the third opportunity, and not sure it's a hurdle because we can always improve, is just in terms of just overall running the basics of retail. And what that means is don't complicate it, keep it simple. We have our COO who's just came from Walmart as well, Jack Williams. He is a true operator, and he is, going store to store and talking associate to associate about how to run the basics of store operations. And just by keeping the basics at the heart, we're seeing, already sales improvement just by focusing on the basics. And I think what he's also teaching us as an organization is that's what we should be focused on in every bit of our businesses. This isn't complicated. It's when we overthink it, we make it complicated. So how do we run the basics in every one of our departments? How do we appreciate, when we're achieving our milestones, and celebrate our successes where we can? But that still takes a lot. We're still trying to train. And all three of those components to me are probably some of our core. But if you come talk to me 2 years from now, I'm going to still probably tell you those are our core. If you talk to me 5 years from now, I'm still going to tell you those are probably our core. Because as we talked earlier, things evolve, things are moving fast, so we've got to continue to evolve ourselves. So.
Go ahead, Richard.
Thanks. Just wondering about the your product line. Is it made in Japan?
Majority of it's made in Japan.
Okay, good. I just want to bring, when you're moving to Florida, I was just wondering, further to Irene's question, the Buy American with the pending election and sentiments about, Chinese product and all of that. If you had a large percentage of made in China with such low price points, if there are tariffs or whatever, I'm sure that would disrupt your business model quite significantly. Whereas a Walmart has, national brand, food, grocery, high margin stuff, etc. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts about that in terms of potential threat, watching the political landscape and which states you move into. Although Arizona is predominantly conservative and it's one of your best ones. So, but I'm just wondering in terms of the political, cultural dynamic, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I would think, Florida was just an example. We're going to be, what are we going to be? Probably 15, 20 states here in the next, 2 or 3 years. So we're going to have definitely a diverse customer. And so for us, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the political environment necessarily when it relates to the states we're going into. But I think it is worth us to care about as we have a response for any type of questions that we may get. I think we have a great story to tell when it comes to where our product is made. I am proud to say that we source all over the world. It's not just in one location as well, because like any company that has a private brand, you're going to source where it makes sense for the company. But when you make those sourcing decisions, you also have to have a response, because you are going to have the consumer out there, not necessarily your customer, but you will have the consumer ask some of those tough questions. And I think we got to be ready to respond with no matter what. But hopefully that will always respond to, we're bringing in, again, that diverse set of merchandise that is supporting a demand. And we've proven time and time again, even our last few openings in several states, that the customer at the current time is setting the politics aside, and they're enjoying something new, they're enjoying something fresh. And I think if we keep the team focused on it, we keep the organization rallied around item merchandising and opening these stores and having fun while doing it, we'll answer the questions as they come. But it's definitely not it's definitely not holding us back any. So.
Quick time check. We're at 15 after the hour. Anybody who hasn't asked a question should please raise your hand now. Rod, I saw you had your hand up earlier and put it down. Do you want to jump in?
No, I'll give the space to anyone that hasn't had a chance to ask a question tonight. Anyone sitting on a good one there? This has been a great conversation. Here we go.
Okay, Bushan, go ahead.
Yeah, Firstly, I'm really enjoying this conversation. So I was in Japan with Rod for 3 years. So I've seen Daiso, the big stores, small stores. I really enjoyed shopping there. Like you said, it's like go and surprise yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to touch a little bit about upon assortment strategy, right? Like moving from 90 stores to 1,000 stores, and you said you're also going to be serving different customers, right? It's not going to be the same customer. Your target customers will be different, and you might probably serve different target customers in different locations. So how are you planning on what that assortment strategy looks like as you grow?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's kind of easy for us in the fact that we're curating with our shelves with the same assortment that we have in Japan. So we almost get the opportunity to cherry pick a little bit. But the other there's two more challenges. So the second part of that is store the community, or what I would call what's another name? So rationalizing your assortment based on the customer, maybe in a unique market, a unique demographic, a unique temperature zone, but you're having kind of this differentiated assortment across stores that may need to be unique, or certain categories that you need to be unique based on where you are. And we're starting to have that discussion now because we know, and learning from Chandler, Arizona. By the way, there's not too many lakes in Phoenix. If you guys have looked on a map, so there's not a lot of fishing, but we have a nice fishing assortment in terms of lures that would make any fisherman proud, especially at the value that we have them at. And so we're going to have to take a strong look in the markets that we go to and really challenge ourselves on some of the assortment to say, you know what, maybe we need to expand in one category and decrease in other categories that may not just make absolute logical sense. And again, the item may make sense in some stores, but it may not make sense in others. The third piece I would answer your question is, the cool thing about Daiso, it's one of 3 brands. So Daiso is the primary brand, but we also have a collection of assortment called 3P. So that's basically 300 yen and be happy. So we just took it and put them together, call it 3P. It is what it is, but we love it. And the third is kind of it's called standard products. As the name sounds simple, if you think about standard products being more of a crate and barrel, is the best way for me to describe it. It's a little bit higher end, still value, still good price points, but higher end quality. So carving knives and dishware and things like that. If you've been to a crate and barrel, you probably know what I'm talking about. Linens, etc. And so we have a great opportunity. Not going to deliver too much on the call, but we have an opportunity to explore all 3 of those categories of those brands and figure out as we go into different markets, how do we optimize and maybe curate a different level of assortment based on maybe some of the customers or the consumers that we have in that area. I'm really excited. We just signed a couple of deals on 2 major universities outside of just right on the perimeters. And so we're also talking about kind of our which is not new because I know Walmart does it, Target does it, but I'm excited to see how our type of assortment can relate to a college student and to a community. That if you think about our stuff and if you looked at the pictures, dorms, I mean, God, we got everything you need to fit a dorm or an apartment. I mean, it's amazing. And so we think we have another niche there that is a little bit differentiated. Again, focus on value, quality, but also breadth of assortment. But we know that assortment in our college store is going to be uniquely different than what you'll see in a store, say, just down the road from our distribution center. So to answer your question, we've got a couple of different thoughts, a couple of different strategies, but I think the leverage that we have and the breadth of assortment to choose from, using proper analytics, listening to our customer, and making sure that we can get the product here in a safe way, I think we've got a great opportunity to flex when we need to flex.
Thank you.
So that's all the hands at this point. Lance, I'll ask you kind of a generalized question, sort of based on the questions that you've got today and how it's made you think about your approach and your strategy. Like, what would a couple closing remarks, what do you want to leave behind for us?
Yeah, first and foremost, we pronounce the company Daiso. It's not Daiso or Diaso or Matt. I'm trying to think.
Well done.
So let's start with brand awareness. Two, I would request all of you to go out and just take a look at who we are. I am a steward of the business. I love feedback, and so I'll take the good with the bad, with the ugly. You know, you're in Vancouver. You know, I'd love to get some feedback. Just ping me on LinkedIn. You know, what you think worked well for you, what didn't. Would love to hear your feedback. So definitely, I would say, you know, as we grow as a brand, you know, keep me posted. I'm all about the sales, but we got to do it the right way. I would say, you know, probably from a business standpoint, the merchant, I really liked what Irina was saying around the, you know, the spider web. That really caught my attention because she's absolutely right and articulated it way better than what I ever would. Because the role of the merchant is going to be challenged daily, yearly, and what we think we know today, just wait, it's going to change tomorrow. And I've attended a few you know, seminars when it comes to some of the upcoming technology and this whole kind of, you know, data immersion and this artificial intelligence that you hear on Bloomberg every morning when I drive in, and you know, Chat GBT and all these things, and it is absolutely real. And so what I've got to figure out as a leader in our organization, and we all shall be thinking about, is you got to find a way to dip your toes into it, no matter how small it is, and no matter how much you think you can afford or can't afford. I think the challenge for all of us is to figure out, you know, how do we start in immersing our teams and giving this data where data is the richest and can be actioned upon, such as the merchant, and they become that orchestrator. You know, it's trialing that and figuring out how to establish the proper foundation for the next couple of years. Because if it works out for you, you're going to want to do it more. And when you want to do it more, that means things have to change at a faster pace. Well, that costs money and it takes time. And so, but I think it's still worth any leaders in the business as part of their 10, 20, 50-year strategy is to stay ahead of that and be important to it, or make sure it's important a part of their overall strategy. And then I would say, lastly, probably for us, it's you know, in anything that we do, no matter what new cool tool comes along, Rod, I would say is just keep it simple. You know, retail is simple. And it's, you know, DC, it is literally box in, box out. It's who makes it the most efficient wins. It's about, you know, it's about serving the customer. Whoever can do that in the most fun, simple way and remove friction from the experience will win. Whoever can differentiate themselves in terms of something unique, fresh, that is way different than anything else will win. And so those components for me are I want to make sure that I instill in our business, but then anybody I talk to, is retail is not complicated. It really is complicated when you make it that way. But it's also important that you figure out within those four walls of retail, or the endless aisle on e-com, every way you want to put it, you do have to find ways to drive efficiencies, because if you don't do it, somebody else will, and they're going to surpass you. But I think keeping the conversation simple, keeping the direction simple, keeping your goals simple, to me goes a long way. And then I think that also allows the teams to unleash and go have fun, because they don't feel like that part's complicated as well. So that would probably be a few of my lasting comments.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Lance. I really appreciate you spending the time with us. It's been fantastic. Rod, we got a couple minutes to close it out.
All right, you guys. I was going to throw that to Matt. I want to really also throw a comment there. Matt, you did a great job inviting Lance, and I think that the prep work and stuff. Lance, this has been outstanding. You know, I love the conversation tonight, and for all the members that got into the conversation, I think that it's such an interesting world of you know, all these changes, and like you said, keeping your toe and all that, but still be remaining true to the basics. And you know, Rick asked that question tonight about the story, and you got into those chair socks, and I just saw people's faces. And I don't know, Matt, if we can show this later when we edit the video for those that couldn't attend tonight, but there was so much going on in the chat line of people randomly trying to find a picture of a chair sock. I thought, well, we all just turned into customers right there. So Matt, I don't know if you want to say anything else to close. You did a lot of work with this session too.
Yeah, I'll just say, Lance, thank you. Thank you for the time. I know you're out in California, so this is kind of your dinner time, wind down with the wife kind of thing. So tell Lisa we said thank you for letting us steal you for a little bit. But thank you for your time and just for the expertise you shared. We definitely learned a lot. So appreciate you doing that, man.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Thank you for the questions, and it's a pleasure to meet all you guys. And yeah, if we're not connected on LinkedIn, definitely send me a note, send me a message, but I'll take any feedback. But if you also want to have a sidebar chat, Irina, I'd definitely like to touch base with you on the side. I think you've got a lot of knowledge to share, but also, your pulse on the industry is also very important to us.
Yeah.
What is going on out there. I think we can learn.
Happy to do that.
Yeah, great. Cool. So glad to make the connections.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
You guys
Lance.
keep an eye out. I'm going to post this recording on the TEC LinkedIn page that we have out there, the company page. So keep an eye out for that. I'll post that probably in the next 24 hours. And then, yeah, we've got a lot of other additional speakers lined up over the next several months and ideas, things. So be on the watch out for that because we've got some cool ideas coming up. Rod, anything else?
No, you guys, great. Have a fantastic night or day or whatever time zone you're in. And once again, Lance, great conversation. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Think
Bye.
about how
Thanks,
far we've
folks.
come. One
Bye-bye.
year ago, we were meeting on this.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone. Have fun shopping for chair socks and bananas.
That's right. Bye, y'all.